Welcome to Agree to Disagree, the podcast where two sisters show how you can disagree about everything but still keep that family bond and friendship.
That's right. We're Sharon and Karen, and we don't just see the world differently, we live it differently. Whether it's politics, parenting, pop culture, or even pineapple on pizza, you can count on us to discuss both sides of the debate.
We're here to prove that disagreeing doesn't mean disrespect. We'll hash it out, laugh it off, and remind you that it's possible to have different opinions and still love and respect one another.
Grab a coffee, settle in, and enjoy the conversation. Who knows? You might even find yourself changing sides.
Welcome, everyone. Let's get started.
On a Karen show.
Sharon and Karen show.
Today's topic is corporal punishment in schools.
Okay, but you know I'm going to slip up and call you Dee Dee.
Yeah, that'll be a whole nother topic of conversation.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will.
Our topic for today is to spank or not to spank.
No, what I was going to tell you was, damn, I studied up on the wrong topic.
What? You're kidding me. Talked about this.
I
Thought it was
prayer in school. I thought it was prayer in school.
It wasn't prayer
What?
in school. It was school
Okay,
scenes.
okay.
Do you
Okay, well,
remember
let's
our
talk about it.
conversation? We talked about,
Yes.
should we repeat
Yes.
these things? Will they still be funny next time we talk about them?
Okay, yes,
Yeah.
I know. I just have a lot on my mind. Okay. Corporal
Please.
punishment. Yes. Go ahead. Yeah.
So, do you think that corporal punishment should be allowed in schools? Sharon?
I do not have a problem with corporal punishment in school. However, I do think that if another adult is going to lay a hand on one of my children, I should be present.
So, you don't have a problem with it as long as you're present for it?
Yes. I got spanked in elementary school. I was in the 4th grade, and they called our mom, you know?
Dun, dun, dun,
I,
dun,
uh,
dun,
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 dun.
dun.
Do you remember what her nickname was when she used to substitute?
Sarge?
Yes. Yes.
I did
Yes.
remember. I don't remember a lot, but I remember that. She was mean. She was mean.
Oh, boy.
I mean, let's clear it up
But
for the listeners. She was not mean to the point that she would abuse us, but she
Oh,
was
no.
5'10",
She was
German heritage, big boned, and a big woman. And
She was intimidating.
She was
She was
intimidating.
intimidating. Hence the name Sarge.
yes,
And she controlled the classrooms too. I mean, I tell you. But I remember I was going to get spanked in the 4th grade.
What did you do?
It was so stupid. I just retaliated and protected myself after somebody slammed me into a locker, and I just slammed them back. Like I pushed them back, but the coach and the principal and the teacher just saw me. They
Of
didn't
course.
see her, of course. So I got in trouble.
So
So-
this is a good. Okay, we're gonna go finish your thought. I have a habit of
Okay.
interrupting, so go ahead, finish your.
So mom came. So they called mom and said, we're going to give her a licking for hitting somebody in school, right?
Licking, for those of you joining us from
I
the
know.
north,
I was
licking
going to
is
say
a
licking.
term for spanking, the southern term for spanking.
Did I actually say it? I didn't even think I said it. I thought I changed. Give it a licking.
The teachers were not actually going to lick her face.
Just lick her. No, that would be really gross.
That would really be a
That
better
would-
punishment than a spanking, because what kid wants to?
Oh, remember? Oh my gosh! Remember mom's thumb baths? Remember mom's thumb baths? I still can smell
Kids,
her breath.
my kids used to back away from me when I would start doing that.
Yes. I did it to my grandson the other day, and he backed away from me. He's like, "Oh my gosh!" I'm like, "You know what? This is part of the culture here."
Yeah.
So anyway, so they called my mom and said, "Yes, we're about to give her a licking," because that is what it was called in Texas back then. And she said, "I'm on my way," and she's there in the room. And the principal asked me, you know, I'm 4th grade, asked me, "Do you want Coach Dorsey," who is a big burly guy, "do you want Coach Dorsey to give you the licking or your mom?" And I'm like, Coach Dorsey, Coach Dorsey,
Oh,
Coach
yeah.
Dorsey.
She was
please."
powerful. She was a powerful woman.
Please.
You did not want to get spanked. And so when our dad would spank us, you know, when
Yeah.
we would get in trouble and we had to wait for dad to come home, we had to go to the closet, pull out a belt, pick
Use
the belt.
belt.
I vividly remember picking that belt. You had to lay it on the bed and sit there and wait for him to come.
Yes. Waiting. And the waiting was terrible.
was the worst part.
That was the most
spanking,
terrible part of the punishment.
Yes.
Was
the
quick.
spanking was quick, but the waiting was horrific.
Waiting was horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. My mom was there, though. My mom was there.
I'm surprised she didn't say hit him harder.
No, I don't remember that, but I do remember not wanting her to give me the licking.
Yeah.
I wanted Coach Torpsy to give me the licking.
Well, I originally was on the side of sure, spanking, because we grew up with it in Texas. And I was like, sure, why not? But then I started looking at it a little bit before tonight. I actually researched the right topic.
I did not. I researched the wrong topic.
And I have some questions now. Like, I think that maybe it shouldn't be allowed because, really, with your story, I think is a perfect example because you got a spanking for protecting yourself. And is that fair?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But is life fair? It's not fair.
Yeah, but should you get beat because of it?
Well, I didn't get beat.
Well,
I didn't
get
beat,
that way.
But I did break the rules. I laid my hands on another human being that was perceived to be an aggressive movement. So, regardless of whether it was fair or not, I still broke the rules. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Like I broke the rules.
But what I was reading, it was saying like there is no evidence that show any positive correlation or any evidence that corporal punishment actually works, is actually effective.
That spanking corporal punishment actually works in the schools?
In the schools.
I'm talking about just in schools. In home. Okay.
Just in schools. We're just talking about schools.
Because that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation.
We would Yeah.
So we're just talking about schools. Because I also read that there are instances where there could be, and I'm not saying this is absolute, but they have some studies that have shown Black or kids with disabilities are twice as likely to get punished as white kids without disabilities.
So, that doesn't seem right. Unless you're, to me,
that
study or whatever.
That is very easy to say sitting there as a white person. No, that doesn't seem
No, you're talking to somebody who worked in the mental health field, in the mental retardation field for 18 years. Like I worked with disabled kids. So, and in some schools, those children are pretty well protected. Now, I could see it if in the article that you read, disability, they're including in there, or maybe the majority are more mental health disabilities.
It didn't specify, but that was my assumption.
Exactly.
That was my assumption.
Exactly. That would be my assumption too.
Yeah.
Like kids with ADHD, kids with ADD, kids with, severe impulse control, behavioral problems, that type of thing.
One thing
but that's not because they're labeled disabled. That's because there's a disruption that's going on. And,
But should a kid that has ADHD be punished more severely, even though his disability, because ADHD is considered a disability, because he has this problem, should he be spanked more? Is that going to help him? No.
Well, no. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with people getting spanked or kids getting spanked more just because. I
think it'd be interesting to find out. Can you guess which state has the highest number of incidents of corporal punishment? From what I researched,
Texas.
No,
Texas probably. Oh no, probably one of the southern states though.
Yes, Mississippi.
Yeah,
which also had the highest number of lynchings in the past. So, is there a correlation?
Ooh.
I don't know, but there are studies saying they see with a higher correlation of corporal punishment being administered. You also have the higher history of violence being allowed in that state.
In that state.
So I think I told you before, like I was at dinner with my friends with a couple of Americans and a Moroccan. It's also been banned in Morocco. I did confirm it today that it was banned a long time ago in Morocco. So I was telling them that I vividly remember being spanked in school. Adil was telling me this sob story. He's like, yeah, I remember it was pretty bad because it was allowed when I was in school and they had this metal ruler and they would hit your hand. And I looked at him and I'm like, that's nothing. What do you mean? He goes, no, it really hurt. It was a metal ruler and they hit your hand. And I was like, Are you kidding me? We had paddles that were like 2 feet long. Some of them with holes
and about
in
an inch thick.
about an inch thick with holes drilled in them so you wouldn't have as much air resistance. Do you remember that? Do you remember holes being put in them?
I totally remember it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you didn't have the resistance in the air and they could hit you harder and faster.
Yeah. Yeah. It's our conversation that you and I got in trouble a lot. And we really did. I only remember one spanking at the school, the one in the 4th
now that
grade.
could go
and
to
that is the last one.
That could go to the pro spanking because I only vividly remember one, and maybe that was the one and only, and then we, became good kids after that.
That's right. That's what
possible.
I'm saying.
That's
what
possible.
I'm saying. Corporal punishment at home. And we knew if we did that one more time, I mean, if we ended up with another licking at school, there was no coming back from that at the house. So I would like to fact check that because that bothers me. Being somebody who used to work with kids with disabilities, that bothers me if they're getting.
Yeah, we'll fact check it. Should parents be able? This is another thing I read. Should parents be able to opt out of?
Absolutely, and in the state of Texas, they can. At the beginning of each school year or I guess new school the kid's going into, they can write a letter to the school saying you will not spank my children at school. So even in the state of Texas, they can do that. They can opt out and say, do not touch my child.
I saw something that said that sometimes it's difficult to opt out, that sometimes you have to go to a doctor and get a note. So it makes it cumbersome to opt out.
Oh, that's ridiculous. Now, that I disagree with. That I totally disagree with.
But
it should
then
not
what's the point?
Be made.
If some kids can opt out, then those kids are never going to be punished the way that the other kids are. Is that fair to have some kids open to spankings when, half the class?
But you're talking about some schools where there's 1,500 people in a freshman class. So there's no way that students are even going to know, oh, that kid got spanked, but I don't have to get spanked. Out of 1,500 kids in your class, I mean, you don't know.
I don't think that matters. No, I'm not talking about the other kids knowing. If half the kids opt out, what if they think they can get away with more because there's no immediate punishment? If you don't have another system of punishment,
just because you're not,
it could just be suspension, and suspension hurts the child more than it hurts them educationally.
But you can't. So what you're saying is that you think there should be no punishment whatsoever?
No,
there's no consequences to bad behavior.
I don't know what the consequence is. I don't think that suspension is a consequence because telling a kid he doesn't have to go to school, the kid's going to be happy, right? Generally, kids are going to be happy that they don't have to go to school.
Mine wasn't. Mine was ticked off, and I went and fought it, and
he got kicked out because he was defending himself.
He was defending himself, but I won that argument. But I think where you were going with your initial thoughts around if half the kids get a spanking and the other half get suspension, then the equality of the punishment is not there. Then the punishment, the equality, there's not an equality.
The equality of the punishment is not there. And the incentive, you could have kids that would rather be suspended and don't care about being suspended. And so they're going to act up anyway.
Those are probably the kids not getting spankings at home.
Yeah, but then they're not getting them at school either. What I'm saying is I'm not sure that we have come up with the best way to deal with bad behavior at school. The other thing that I saw is that sometimes spankings are given for things like being late to class, for missing homework, for bad grades. Is that right?
At school?
Yes.
At school?
At school.
For bad grades?
Yes. I'm talking about school.
No way. No way.
You don't know because you don't know what the school policies are.
Yes, you would. I did. I knew what my kids.
This is from the Human Rights Watch and the ACLU back in 2008.
2008, that was almost 20 years ago. That was almost 20 years ago.
Well, yeah, but corporal punishment is still allowed in a lot of schools.
Yeah, but for you to say that, you don't know the policies at the school.
Children have been corporally punished in schools for being late to class, failing to turn in homework, violating dress codes, running in the hallway, laughing in the hall, sleeping in class, talking back to teachers, go into the bathroom without permission, mispronouncing words, and receiving bad grades. Now, how many? I don't know. But if you have a law on the books that you are allowed to spank a child, and we're not talking just about spanking. We're talking about corporal punishment.
I would want to fact check that too, though, because that doesn't even make logical sense. That if a kid doesn't turn in homework, they're getting a spanking. Like, that doesn't equate logically in my mind.
It's very interesting that you say that just because it doesn't make sense to you, that it can't be happening.
No, I'm not saying that, but I do want us to fact check that. As the article is that old.
It is old.
Because
if it had happened in the past, you don't think that it's likely that it would still be happening?
I don't know. I think it would surprise me that it's still happening because we're such a litigious society. And kids get away with a lot of stuff in schools these days. They can break rules all the time, and the parents go up there and side with the kid, even though the kid's breaking the school policies, right? But I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I mean, I was a social worker for 18 years. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. But I kind of want to go back to something else that you said, though. I think the question is more about what would be the right kind of punishment for a kid. Because I think you brought up a good point. If you don't have corporal punishment, then is suspension the solution? Is that the punishment? But it is punishing the kid's education. And then you're basically setting a precedent saying you act up, you don't have to come to school.
Right.
You know?
Which some kids will be happy about. The ones that want to be there will be upset, but then again, you're hurting them education.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you're hurting them educationally because I don't have a whole lot of faith in the way that we teach kids in the classroom these days. But when we talk about corporal punishment too in the schools, I would say that after some age, I don't know what that age would be, maybe after 6th grade, I don't think spankings do much good. You know, after a certain age.
Right. I agree with you.
I don't even think in the home that they do that good. So I don't think that there should be spankings going on in high schools. That shouldn't happen. I get it in the elementary schools because of the developmental level of the children, right? Like,
yes. But the issue is there is no age limit on it in the law, as far as I know. But do you know corporate punishments, the definition of the Texas Education Code says it's the deliberate infliction of physical pain by hitting, paddling, spanking, slapping, or any other physical force used as a means of discipline.
Is that code up-to-date one? Does it have 25 on it? Or at least 24?
No, but if it's a code, it's from 2013. But if it hasn't been updated, it's still going to be on the books.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is you don't know if it hasn't been updated is what I'm saying.
I know that corporal punishment is still allowed.
Yes, but I'm saying the definition. That's what I'm saying. I'm wondering if the definition, because I'm hazarding a guess here.
I think you're very optimistic.
That if anybody, I am, because how stupid would it be for a teacher or a principal to slap a child? Like you said, slapping and hitting. Like that, to me, those two words, like hitting, that sounds like closed fist, you know, like a punch.
I think you're going to be very surprised by how much of this is still going on and is allowed because of the law on the books. Texas, even as early as 2023, tried to ban corporal punishment. They're still using the term corporal punishment. So what is the current definition of corporal punishment, even though this does sound like Texas, what would be allowed, but they still haven't been able to ban it. So I think there's like 17 states that still allow corporal punishment.
You did a whole lot of freaking research.
No, I didn't. I did very little. But
you did a lot more than me because I was the wrong thing.
Well, how much did you do on prayer in school?
Just a little, not much.
Yeah. So you think parents should have the right to choose corporal punishment, to opt in or out? I believe in that. I do agree with that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think that there should be an age limit because after a certain developmental stage in adolescence, corporal punishment does not have the same effect that it does when you're a younger kid. But, you and I grew up with corporal punishment in our household, right? We turned out fine.
Which my friends made the comment, boy, you really grew up in the wild, wild west, didn't you? And I was like, what?
No, it was all normal. And I didn't do it often, but there were times I spanked my children. But I will say this, this was just recently. This has been in the last 6 months. My grandson hit me, and I popped him on the butt and told him not to hit. Now, what
did your daughter think of that?
Does that freaking mean? Oh, she wasn't there. I didn't hit the kid hard. But right when I did it, I thought to myself, and I said, well, that made absolutely no sense.
Yeah, don't
that
hit.
I am telling him to not to hit, but I can hit you for hitting me.
Yeah.
Like that kind of that eye for an eye kind of thing. So like I said, this was 6 months ago. I did it. And I was like, well, that just makes no sense whatsoever. And I think I knew that when I started to raise my kids. And I remember telling this is a story my father-in-law tells all the time because he thinks it's so funny to tell this story. He was like, oh, I remember one time when my grandson kicked me and I kicked him back. And he was going to tell his mommy. He was all upset. And when he came and told his mommy, and his mother, me, said, well, we don't spank in this house and we use timeout. And which suspension is timeout? I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But we use timeout. And then within a year, or maybe even 6 months, I started to spank a little bit, right? And my father-in-law saw me do it and said, oh, I thought y'all used timeout. And I said, yeah, well, that went by the wayside, it didn't work as well. Because I think developmentally, and as a young child, for some reason, that immediate, unfortunately, physical pain sometimes gets their attention and they're like, oh, I better not do that anymore. And I'm not saying that timeout didn't work. I mean, it worked as well.
I did it one time with Amira at our mom's house when we were visiting, and I forgot about her. She was so quiet and good and time.
That to me one time too, she said. Because I would put myself in timeout, remember?
Oh,
I was always like,
I felt
so guilty about
what happened to you?
Shoes. I don't know. Now, I'm just reading something here that says the use of corporal punishment in Texas schools has significantly decreased, and many districts have opted for alternative disciplinary methods.
I think it'd be interesting to see if that is more in city areas versus rural, or what would be the economic demographics of those schools that have opted for that.
Well, you know that we'll get plenty of comments giving us all of the different rules around this and statistics.
So there is one other thing that I saw that I thought was interesting. And it said, so most corporal punishment, like you said, involves elementary school students, because good luck even trying to spank an 18-year-old or a 16-year-old. Most elementary school children range in average height from 43 inches at age 5 to 55 inches at age 10. A 2-foot-long paddle can be as half as tall as the child being paddled. So if you hit an adult with something that was their size, it would be considered assault. So when you think about it that way, it makes you stop and think, what the heck am I hitting this child with? Because I don't remember having small paddles for younger children and bigger paddles for adult-sized children. You're going to have instances where the parent's not going to opt to be there because some parents can't. Most parents can't leave work just because their kid is being spanked.
Or they don't. Or they don't care. Or they don't care.
Or you have the opportunity for abuse.
And that's one thing I was going to go back to, actually. Being somebody that was a social worker for several years, there are those people that abuse power and authority. And because the teachers and the principals and the coaches in schools are in authority positions and are authority figures, it can, because the laws are permitting it, it can create opportunities for people to abuse it. Those that would, do I think that that's like a large amount? Absolutely not. I don't think it's the majority. But do you even, just because it's not the majority doesn't mean it's okay.
Right.
And do you
leave a law on the books that
could
if even one child,
abuse,
that gives the potential for abuse.
Right. It's not okay. It's not okay.
My friends were shocked that I thought that corporal punishment was okay. But again, it's coming from that fact that we grew up with it in the house. Like, we weren't beaten, but we were spanked.
Right.
We were each only remember being spanked once at school. I remember being spanked often at home.
Yeah. Well, you got in more trouble than I did.
Yeah, I did.
But
I was a very bad liar anyway. I was always grounded.
You were always grounded.
I was in so much trouble all the time.
You were always grounded. Well, but you asked the question whether I agreed with it or not at the very beginning, and I said yes, if I'm present. And now, because we've talked it through, and a law on the books can set up potential abuse of a child, then I'm not sure that I really want it on the books.
Which is exactly what I thought after I did that little bit of research. At first, I was like,
Yeah.
well, sure, I agree with it. And then I started reading. I'm like, wow, it's not.
I don't
just
like
cut
the
and dry.
definition. Yeah, and I don't like the definition.
I'm pretty
like
sure
the
that's
definition.
still the definition. Why would they go and
Yeah,
change what
well,
corporal punishment is?
Exactly. And if it is, then I'm really not okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm not okay with that. Like, slapping and hitting, that's not okay.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. That's not okay.
This is but this is exactly what I'm hoping that we can get to, because there are some really fundamental things that you and I disagree on. We know that, especially when it comes to politics,
yeah.
and we'll get into that. But what I'm hoping that will show the people is that at the core of it, we really don't disagree.
I know. Exactly. You could see it in our conversations.
Yes.
Because we were being respectful of somebody else.
We get stuck on the sound bites, and we get stuck on what we think that our party is telling us we need to believe. And we say, oh, but if you believe the other thing, you're with them.
Yeah.
If you don't believe this statement right here.
Right.
And I'm tired of being told that I am
one
right
way or the other.
or one way or the other.
Exactly.
We are a middle of the road country. That is how we became great. And we're not going to be great again until we get back to the middle of the damn road. Yeah.
That's the other thing. Just because somebody doesn't believe the way that you do doesn't mean that they're wrong and that you're right. Because that's the other thing that drives me freaking crazy.
Okay.
Well, this has been good. This has been good, right?
All right. Yep.
That wraps up today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a rating and review. It helps us improve and get the word out.
Got thoughts, questions, or suggestions? We want to hear from you. Reach out to us on Facebook and Instagram, or shoot us an email at agreedtodisagree@gmail.com.
Let us know what you think, what topics you'd like us to cover, or any questions you might have. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.